morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Dear Prime Minister Zaev, dear Prime Minister Kurti, distinguished representatives, colleagues, partners, and friends. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome you here to the Socio-Ecological Forum here in Skopje. We called it a forum because this should be a marketplace of ideas, initiatives, and on how to tackle climate change in a manner that, as Mr. Zaev so elegantly put it yesterday, puts the citizens in front and center. The solutions to the big questions of our times, how to find a more sustainable way of living, and how to restructure our economies that offer jobs and prosperity to our citizens, these are often answered on the local level. This is why we put such an emphasis on connecting the wider programmatic development of social democratic parties here in the region to the solutions on the ground, in the local communities, in the municipalities. I am particularly happy that we're joined by Social Democrats and party leadership here, not just from North Macedonia, from the Western Balkans, but also from the wider European region. Change is coming. It is just a question whether we are washed over by it or whether we address it head on. That is why Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, Olaf Palme Center, and Progress Institute organized this forum to join each other and find solutions in the spirit of cooperation and solidarity together. I would like to thank you personally, Zoran and Albin, for your personal leadership in this matter and your insistence that social democrats need to work together in this region and beyond to develop progressive policies for the social ecological transformation. Let us carry this spirit throughout the day, and I wish you all an enjoyable, rewarding, and inspiring event today. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Dear Prime Minister Zaev, dear Prime Minister Albin Kurti, distinguished guests from near and far, thank you all for being here for this very important event on the socio-ecological transformation, because this is, at the end of the day, a cross-border crisis that we are facing, and we need to have joint actions together rather than being forced to be reactive at a later stage. So this is the first in the series of these socio-ecological forums, and to carve out also a joint path towards the future, because in dealing with this crisis that climate change will bring upon us, we need this green and just transition to a clean, healthy, as well as a fossil-free economy. In balance, of course, with nature, at the same time creating new opportunities, jobs, as well as reducing inequalities. So it's much in line. What we need to do is, of course, stand by the social democratic traditions of leaving no one behind. And that's why we start the discussions here today. I'm looking really much forward to hearing all your very important inputs in this. But regional cooperation, as well as cooperation with the European Union and beyond, will be needed to tackle this. And social democracy has always been the driving force in dealing with the betterness of people, and that's why we're all here today as well, to start that process and move forward together. So, thank you, and I hope for very good discussions today.
Dear Prime Minister Zoran Zaev, dear Prime Minister Albin Kurti, dear President, it's an honor that I can tell you from the Progress Institute for Social Democracy in Macedonia, in the Republic of North Macedonia, on the event that for the first time is being realized in this format. The fact that you are here and there are representatives of all countries of Western Balkans, Serbia, Kosovo, and Albania, and from Montenegro, I guess, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, that shows that the region is ready to tackle the global problem, and those would be the climate changes which are all over our heads. Republic of North Macedonia is one of the leaders, one of the leading countries in this sphere, and according to all the policies that it conducts, I think that we are ready to start and tackle these problems, because we are all aware that we don't have a reserve planet, a second planet, and it's up to us how we will manage in the future the climate changes and everything that represents a threat for humanity. This event also shows that the region and the countries in the region are here to work in this sphere, and not only that, but that in reality they will do it on field, and that all this will not be finished with this event, but in the period that follows, we will all together contribute our maximum to mitigate the consequences of global warming. I wish you an honest welcome. I wish a successful forum today in Skopje, and I hope that in near future we will be able to be together again and discuss these topics. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Dobro jutro. And welcome to the first and opening session of the Socio-Ecological Forum Skopje. My name is Hanna Sokolovic. I will be moderating this session, and I greet you all and thank you for being here with us today. Today we will be discussing the European Green Deal and the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans. We hope to have strong participation of all of you sitting here today, but also of you who are watching us through Zoom. Now, just a quick technical note before I introduce our opening speakers. Translation is available both live and to those of you who are watching us through Zoom. Now I would like to invite the Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Zaev, to address our participants.
Dear President, dear Prime Minister, and my friend Albin Kurti, and Prime Minister of Republic of Kosovo, dear organizers of the Socio-Ecological Forum, dear guests from the whole Western Balkan, from the region, dear MPs from other parliaments that are here today with us, dear MPs from our Macedonian parliament, ladies and gentlemen. At the very beginning, I would like to send a gratitude to the organizers of the Socio-Ecological Forum, those being the Friedrich Ebert Foundation in Skopje office, the International Center Olof Palme, and Progress Institute for Social Democracy. Their intention to gather us here today to talk, to exchange opinions for a clean and green future for all citizens of the Western Balkans is a wonderful idea. It's very important that this forum is the starting point from which we should get recommendations and initiatives for decisive acts against the consequences of the climate changes and unsustainable fossil sources of energy as the biggest threats for the environment, and with that for our socio-economic future. In both mandates of the government that I lead, one of our central commitments, starting from 2017, is to set the energetic policies in the Republic of North Macedonia on stable, long-term basis, based on clean, green energy, in order to enable conditions for sustainable growth of the economy of our country, healthy environment, and new jobs. Our new law on energy is in compliance completely with the EU, with the regulation, as well as with the energetic community, and enables realization of the new strategy for development of the energetics until 2040 and the national plan for climate and energy. One of the basic principles of the government's work is what's drafted in the plans to become real and concrete. This is why we have adopted a new legislation, have complied it with the European directives as a new wave of support of investments in the photovoltaic plants and windmills. This has been recognized by the investors who are already completing their photovoltaic trams gotten on the first transparent acts through the premium processes. We are a country of the sun, everyone knows this. Unfortunately, this was not used in the past, but in the last 4 years, in the phase of building, there are more and more capacities. As I said, with the premiums, we are realizing projects worth 30 million euros of a total of 62 megawatts. In Oslo, May, where we had a pit for coal, we now have 110 megawatts of photovoltaics. 100 of those come from a public-private partnership. The total value is 67 million euros. Here in this project, the condition for realization was 1 employed per megawatt that the private investor has to take them if they want to realize such megawatts on the plants. So 100 employees are going directly from the coal central for managing with the new power plants. On 3 locations, in Bogdanci, Sveti Nikole and Demirkapia, we have per 36 megawatts wind parks which have completed all the conditions, all urban permits, expropriation of field, and have started with construction. On the old airport in Štip, we are realizing 360 megawatt with a French company, power plants, a project worth many millions of euros. In Kumanovo, Kriva Palanka, we are realizing 415 megawatts wind parks, a project worth 500 million euros. We are doing transformation of the thermal power plant in Negotino from mazut to natural gas and in hydrogen in the future of 220 megawatts, project worth 60 million euros. Mytilineos, the Greek company, has completed all procedures for setting the second gas headquarters here in Skopje, 100 million worth of 110 megawatts for covering 1/3 of the capital city. In Alexandropoli, in Greece, we entered as a country in a project worth 600 million euros where we are building huge gas terminal of liquid natural gas, but also 800 megawatts of gas headquarters where we will be present with 25%. In Štip, at the Tricheshmi locality, we are negotiating for 450 megawatts, a project worth 280 million euros. In Bitola, where 3 blocks of coal, where 72% of our energy is produced at the moment, we plan to build 2 times per 200 megawatts of gas headquarters and additionally 160 photovoltaic thermal power plants for securing directly the employees from the coal headquarters of the new energies sources. One of the biggest projects is Chevra with Orlov Most, a project worth 800 million euros. We are in the final phase from the second phase, the last phase of choosing a partner to the country. It's a hydropower plant to 350 megawatts where 9 big European and world companies worked on, and we are negotiating with them. We have another location of 50 megawatts in Mirovci on the Greek-Macedonian border. At the same time, we signed an agreement with the European delegation and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development for just transition, where we should additionally have put efforts so that all of us that in the period until 2030, with the final termination with the gas headquarters in our country, who will be left unemployed, to be employed again and be deployed. This is an example for other countries in the region of Western Balkans and Southeast Europe. With the help of the European delegation in Skopje, we are really working on a diagnosis of a just transition of the coal regions in North Macedonia, which should be in an economic and social aspect with successful results. In the meantime, we are not waiting. We are walking towards the path to fulfilling the Green Deal of the European Union to joint meet the goal, and the goal is ours as well and to the European Union. These days, we have adopted also a law on strategic investments for the big investors to recognize the commitment of the government and to be more brave when getting decisions to invest in North Macedonia. Everyone who will invest over 50 million euros, especially in renewables, has the possibility to have an agreement directly with the government, and this agreement will go to the parliament, which will become a law, and with that you will get a fast track for realizing the investment. All this in regards of the investment is a result of our strategy for development of the energy until 2040. Our commitment to the green agenda envisages implementation of the Just Transition program, which is our guidance in all these big mega projects that should bring new sources of energy for North Macedonia, the whole region and the European continent, but before all, taking care of the aspect of the workers and the employees in the factories. For these activities, the European community has put good words to our efforts, commitments for everything that has been done so far in the energetic sector, because we are the first country on the Western Balkans that has done all this. For us, this is an indicator that we have completed the reforms well, we have adopted the needed legislation and created conditions for investments. This is the essence of the existence of governments and administrations, to create fair conditions for investors, to create new jobs, and to create healthy environment with a safe future. Dear President, in conditions of economic crisis caused by the pandemics, apart from tackling the results, the government are doing maximum efforts, are following the condition, especially energetics and energy efficiency, together with digitalization and all other high contemporary technologies are the future of development. Additionally, in step with our commitments and complying with the regulations with the European Union, we have adopted the new law on energy efficiency, which allows realization of all the measures in energy efficiency, following all positive examples of the countries from the European Union and the region, as how the energy efficiency brings us benefit on many levels for the citizens and the economy in general. From that aspect, we can say that the first vehicles on hydrogen for cleaning streets are produced in the Republic of North Macedonia and are being exported everywhere in the world. We are building huge infrastructure worth 140 million euros for hydrogen and natural gas, where we are working on the interconnector with Greece, and we are doing a feasibility study with the Republic of Kosovo and the Republic of Serbia. Also, 10 million per year we are investing in inverter ACs to make our citizens go out from the systems that use fossil fuel. All public institutions have taken the commitment until 2025 to transfer to inverter ACs or gas or other renewables. on 80 buildings, kindergarten schools, we have photovoltaic panels. We have started the project with World Bank worth 25 million euros, and we're developing a huge number of projects with which we're working in parallel on the energy efficiency. I would like to stress, and I will finish with this, we have many challenges ahead, national, regional, when it comes to getting on the global energetic transition, the new technologies in the renewables, the energy efficiency, gasification, but all this is inevitable investment process that bring benefit on the long run. That's why we already did the first serious steps towards that goal. The usage of the renewables and energy efficiency in parallel are part of the frame of implementing the Green Deal of the European Union, which has a clear goal, climate neutral and resistant Europe until 2050. And our country supports the European Green Deal for sustainable economy through changing climate challenges into possibilities and making just transition and inclusive transition. Thank you all, and I will stay here at disposal to participate in all discussions, of course, for all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please join us on the middle seat. Just a quick note, please, even though we all love to hear a beautiful ringtone, turn down your ringtones. Don't be the person we will all look and judge if your phone rings. Thank you. I would now like to invite Mr. Albin Kurti, the Prime Minister of Kosovo, to make his opening statements.
Dear Prime Minister of the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Zaev, dear organizers of this important and timely event, Friedrieber Stiftung, Olof Palme International Center, and Progress Institute, dear representatives of government and parliament, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, in 1962, for President John Kennedy, the mission was clear. The United States had to go to the moon, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. When saying those words, Kennedy knew that given the circumstances, there was no other choice. So, because there was no choice, the hard part had to be done. Today we find ourselves in a similar situation. Climate change is a fact, and it threatens not only our generation, but generations to come and even the planet itself. We have no choice. We must act today, and even though it's hard, we must drastically reduce pollution. This requires hard and painful choices. It's especially hard because we have to change the way we do business. Unprecedented floods, heat waves, and droughts have made it clear that the ecosystem cannot be treated independently from our economic system. We need a new sustainable economic model that leads our countries towards social and ecological progress and improves the well-being of people and delivers social and economic justice. A new sustainable economic model that respects ecological boundaries and limits of our planet. The European Green Deal seeks to put Europe on the path of ecological transition, sustainable inclusive growth, and prosperity. Such a transition for Europe can only be effective if actions are taken in our region too. The European Union has already presented the Green Agenda for the region, which envisages the European Green Deal. But a green agenda requires that we make far-reaching changes to our economy and our way of life. The circular economy, one of the main building blocks of the green agenda for the Western Balkans, is a tool that can lead us towards sustainable economic growth, help us with decarbonization, further optimize energy and transport systems, and finally generate new jobs. In my government, we have taken action to develop a circular economic model in order to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, preserve our biodiversity, build a sustainable food system, and deal with our deeply rooted structural problems in agriculture. This model will also reduce, reuse, and manage our waste and develop new clean industries and new jobs. Energy production and intra-city transport remain our biggest contributors to our greenhouse gas emissions and also lead to the pollution of our cities. This affects the health of our citizens with premature deaths and poor quality of life. There is no question whether we should transition, but when and how. It is important that the model we will choose will be socially just, inclusive, and doesn't slow our economic growth and development. We need strong social floor and solid environmental roof for our home in which we dwell and live. Kosovo generates its energy mainly from coal, with very limited amounts coming from hydropower and wind. Hydropower has not proven to be environmentally friendly in Kosovo, and for now we unfortunately rely on coal. Transitioning from coal to gas, despite having a smaller impact in emissions, it is a shift from one fossil fuel to another. One we have for one which we don't. In that case, we would have to do the transition twice. This week, we just became 6 months old in the government, and that's why we are still conducting a feasibility study about how to move forward best for us and the region. I want to reiterate that we are fully committed to pursuing a clean energy transition and invest in renewables such as wind and solar, and in energy efficiency by remodeling our homes. But we need some time, and especially financial support, so that this process doesn't interrupt the economic growth which lifts our people out of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kurti. These were encouraging messages and have shown that there is progress already being made in the countries of the Western Balkans. We'll keep discussing this topic. As Prime Minister Zaev said, we have a bit less than 3 decades until 2050, when the goal is to make Europe a climate neutral continent. How to achieve this goal without leaving anyone behind? What is the role of Social Democrats? What is the role of the European Union, and should it be more present? Is this an opportunity to strengthen our economies? And many other questions will be answered by our panelists. So now I would like to invite more of them to join me here on stage. I would like to introduce Mr. Adnan Dibrani, Member of Parliament from the Swedish Social Democratic Worker Party. Please join. Knut Fleckenstein, Special Advisor on the Western Balkans, Party of European Socialists. Yeah, you need to track the names on the screen. Great, thank you. And through Zoom, we will also have Johanna Juselius be joining us, who is a Special Advisor on Climate Change and Environment from the Social Democratic Party of Finland. I would like to remind all of us all of them basically who are watching us through the Zoom webinar or through the live stream on Facebook, to be courageous enough and to actively ask questions which, if not answered during this panel will be answered during the day, and you will get answers to any questions you might have about the topic. While getting ready to begin with the panel, I encourage you all also to take advantage of this opportunity and ask any questions you might have. Let's try and motivate each other and send a message outside that, as we've heard in the opening speeches, ecological transformation is not a question of choice, it's a question of when and how. Mr. Debrani, I would like to ask you the first question. Hello, hi. Let's begin with the economic aspect of the topic we're talking about. Is the Green Deal an economic opportunity? We've heard a lot about the just transition during the opening speeches. Is the Green Deal an opportunity to affirm sustainable budgeting, to affirm a kind of a budgeting which will allow the generations which will come after us not to be endangered, which will allow faster economic growth? Are we speaking of an economic opportunity or an economic burden? We will wait. Okay, Mr. Fleckenstein, maybe a question for you, because I see you've tested your microphone and it works. Yeah.
1, 2, can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Okay, I cannot hear you really, but was the question to me?
No, it was not, but I will ask you a question now. Unless Mr. Debrani is technically capable now, could you try and speak, Adnan?
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, great.
Well, it was a cliffhanger.
Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. And it's really hard to hear, so hopefully I can give an answer to this question, and this will work. If you don't hear me, tell me, then I can scream. I'm a politician, so I get paid to scream and talk a lot. Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to be here, not just as a Swedish MP representing Sweden and meeting you all, but also because, as you can see, it's not Andersson or Nilsson or whatever a Swedish typically name. It's Adnan Debrani, which means that something is fishy. But the fishiness is that I am born just a couple of hours from here in Mitrovica, and then but raised in Sweden. So therefore, don't worry, I know Western Balkans, and I probably in the future will become the president of all Western Balkans. So now, both prime ministers are here, you can start preparing yourselves. No, joke aside, I have the question, the first question was, is it an economic opportunity? But we can look at the facts. During these 40 years, if we look at the EU, we have managed to decline the climate impact around 25 to 30%. But at the same time, the economy has grown more than 60%. So most likely it is. And I think as an economist that we need really to do this and transition our economy to a greener deal. And I think that all of the countries that does this will have a market advantage because you will have new technologies that you can sell, but also knowledge that you can sell to other countries. And this will also create new jobs. And if you are one of the first ones, then you have, as I said, a market advantage that you can use quite a lot. This is for me a social democratic way of thinking also. Both Jonas and you mentioned leaving no one behind, but we are also, as social democrats, we don't want to leave the burden of today to future generations. I don't want my daughters to wake up and have this problem when I know that I could have done something now. But I mean, we really need to transition to a fossil-free and clean economy. This is not a new thing for us social democrats. Roughly 50 years ago, we had the first World Climate Conference in Stockholm. I think it's next year, it's 50 years, so we'll probably have it next year again. So it's not a new thing, but it's really going too slow. I think the will is there from all of us. The technology is there. The money is absolutely there. We have more money than we have ever had before. We have too much money for the moment in this all around the systems in the European Union. But it's mostly allocated wrong towards bad gas and so on. So we need to do something towards that. And we need to do it now before it's too late. And it must be done. It's not a choice. It must be done, and I think we all need to do it together, because either Sweden, Kosovo, or North Macedonia does it, it won't matter, because this is also a regional and global thing. That means that we need to cooperate with each other. If Prime Minister Kurti does something bad in Kosovo, it will impact North Macedonia whether they want or not. So we really need to talk with each other while we try to do these small things, also do this bigger thing in the regional level. If we look, I mean, we often let companies drive the process forward, but I think in terms of this, we really need the states to be really engaged. As if you see with the pandemic, we had the coronavirus and so on. Without the states, we wouldn't have had the vaccines and so on. So this is a big thing. We cannot let only companies do it. We need the states to take a good role in it. And Prime Minister Zaev told us quite good about how much North Macedonia is doing for the moment. And it's, as I said, really good for the whole region. In Sweden, we have tried to work with incentives. That always works. So if we look at the households or persons, we try with the small things. We want people to change cars, and when they do, change to a car with lower emission, instead of and then having to pay lower taxes. But if you have a car, a diesel, big BMW or Mercedes-Benz, then you will have higher taxes. This is not good for us Balkanese, because we like big cars and diesel cars, but it's really important. So I always tell them, if you afford these bigger cars, then you can afford bigger taxes also. But they are understanding that this is an incentive. We have a system called, I don't think there is a Swedish English word for it, but we call it in Sweden bonus malus. It's a closed system. So every year when we pay taxes, the ones who buy a bigger car, pay more tax, will subsidize the ones who buy a smaller car, lower emissions and so on. So the system is shut. But we also think about insulating houses, more energy efficient and so on. We have subsidies about that, and it's, I mean, in Sweden it's not a big issue, but still an issue. But if you look at these countries in Balkans, most of the houses doesn't have proper insulation. Therefore it is a good thing to do, because they will get more energy efficient. Another thing is looking at different types of new energy. Prime Minister Zaev told about solar panel, for example. I mean, if it's a good idea to invest in solar panel in Sweden, then I can guarantee you it's a done deal in this part of the world. So do it, but you need to have incentives there in terms of having people to invest. Companies, I mean, most of the companies want to make the transition, but they are afraid of it, they don't dare, they don't know how, even though technology is there. One of the most important things for them is to have long-term regulations in place, so that they know when they make an investment, this will not change from one day to another. We have also tried with different types of credit lines, where the state takes most of the risks up to a specific amount, so that they know that we are with them. Dare try to bring up new technologies and so on, and it's working. We see that we have the first steel that is fossil-free. It's still in the beginning, but it's totally fossil-free steel manufactured in Sweden. So we'll see, and Volvo has taken this together with a lot of other Swedish companies. So we see that the technology is really there, and a lot of things are happening. So I think there is an opportunity, and I think we all need to do it. And I'm not afraid of this. I'm just afraid that the will, even though we have a will, we need the incentives in place so we can do it before it's too late.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Debrani. I will just ask you all to keep in mind the timer which we have on the screen in front of us. I hate to be the one to tell politicians to speak shorter. Actually, I love it. So please keep in mind so we can manage to do everything we've planned during the session. Now, a question for you, Mr. Fleckenstein. How do you see from the perspective of the significant political knowledge you have on the countries of the Western Balkans? We've heard what needs to be done. We heard what are the plans, but what might be the obstacles in this process, and what are the recommendations or suggestions you would give both to the countries of the Western Balkans and the European Union?
May I say first one sentence, having in mind the watch? Now starting.
Yeah,
okay.
4 seconds already.
I would like to thank the two prime ministers for their encouragement today. Very concrete points Zoran Zaev told us and listed up. And this is what we need for politics. We have enough of these wonderful speeches about our grandchilds and so on. What we need is people who do something. And this week I was in Pristina on the way to Skopje, and I spoke with your Minister for Infrastructure about waste and all these projects. You have to take tough decisions. And it's really encouraging to see how these governments, by the way, social democratic governments, are dealing with these issues not by words. They don't talk the talk, they start to walk the walk. And this is something we really should applaud to, really. The second point is, and that now I come to your question, this is a challenge for three kinds of human beings, of business, of governments and governance, and of us, one by one, the individuals. So I think we have to work together to convince, to educate, not only the business but also our personal private life, how to deal with this challenge if we don't want just to make some nice speeches. And what does it mean in the cooperation between European Union and the region? Well, you mentioned a lot these Green Deals and all these plans on the table. At the end, it means also around 30 billion euros altogether for supporting such policy. And that brings us to the challenges as well. First is, what is needed is the political will, as we have seen it here today already. Highly competent workforces. This is sometimes difficult because our system now to be supported by these high amounts is not anymore everyone gets something and then good luck, let's see what the outcome is, but it's a kind of competition as well. Competition of ideas and competent workforces, informed and committed citizens, regional cooperation and coordination. This is, I think, very important. The cooperation with opposition is sometimes necessary. Something to get to pass laws and budgets. And, well, it's not only the government, you need two for tango, but this is also something which we all have to have in mind. Then there is, of course, the polluting industry, which will suffer from some measures, from the green transition, and will do everything possible to slow down the pace, because it's cost. And then we come in this connection also to the point, which is a social democratic core point, that to be green is nice, but to be green without a job is not nice. And the pure green, sometimes accusation, we are not fast enough. Just dealing with environment, but not dealing with the social consequences, that can't be our policy. So we have two parts, not against us, but competing with us. The one, the conservatives who say, well, don't overdo it, it's a lot of cost for the industry, the profit will be slowed down and so on. And the others who say, hurry up, do more, so far so right, but not thinking about the consequences. Yes, shut down all your coal mines and it will be nicer, better pollution in the air, but you will have thousands and thousands of unemployed people who don't know how to feed their children. And this is not the solution for Social Democrats. We have to bring it together, and we should do that. We should continue on that path. Shall I stop here, or shall I continue? Or do you give me a second chance later?
You will have a second chance as well,
Good.
but you can have 13 more seconds if you like.
30 more?
Yes.
No, I keep it for later.
Thank you for the 30 seconds, and thank you for your answer, Mr. Fleckenstein. Now, I would like us to see Mrs. Johanna Juselius, who is joining us through Zoom, as I've said already. We have spoke about the economic aspect of this story. We have heard about the political will and the political dynamics that need to happen in order to fulfill all of the goals that are set up until 2050. But the question that I have for Mrs. Juselius, whether this is a realistic time frame, less than 3 decades. We know that coal is still fundamental to the energy sector in the Western Balkans, accounting for around 70% of electricity produced in the region. We keep mentioning the just transition. Now, is a bit less than 30 years enough to provide this just transition and to meet the standards that the European Union expects Western Balkans to meet?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity to give some comments from the Finnish viewpoint and based on our experiences, which hopefully will give examples and invitation to your process. Just briefly to give the setting, Finland is going to be carbon neutral by 2035, and according to our government program, we want to be a carbon neutral welfare state. And we just finished our budget debate earlier this month, and the government agreed on exact measures to ensure that Finland will be carbon neutral by 2035. And we agreed on emission reductions of about 14 to 15 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And this, together with the land use sector that's adopted later this fall, will get us to this target. So we are doing significant investments in economical renewal and the green transitions. And just for the energy sector in this debate this month, we put around 453 million. And the focus on this sector is to help the transition to renewable energies. And about the investment which was mentioned, it's crucial that the public's putting in the investment, but the private investment is equally or even more important. And the question here we find is how to match these funds together, how to get these investments work towards the same direction. And about the speed, I would say that we have an example from the transport sector, because transport for us has been one of the key issues in meeting the target. And last year it was estimated by our National Technology Center that in 2030 there would be 350,000 electric vehicles on our roads this year. A year later, the estimation had to be adjusted because the figure now is 600,000 electric vehicles. So last year's estimation, where we assumed that we would have 350,000 electric cars on our roads, changed in a year as part of this large transition to green technologies, green sectors, and it doubled. It's now 600,000 electric vehicles. And what we can do as government is obviously to boost this transition by cracking the kind of egg and hen situation, and to make sure that we provide infrastructure for charging of these vehicles as well. And it's not just a question of one measure. When it comes to transport, we need a mixture of several different actions that will get us to our target. And the same we see is with the energy sector, because Finland also still uses coal, though it has made a law that makes it it has to be stopped by 2029. So there's still a few years left for those companies that use coal to transform and change into different energy sources. But already we see that the early adopters are the ones that are winning, because we have around 170 municipalities that use district heating, but around 70% of those use biological energy sources such as biogas, waste heat, and others. And then there's one issue relating to fossil energy as well, and that's the market price, because we can see that the market price for coal and other fossil energy sources has recently risen a lot, and that put together with the emissions trading system will actually make it an expensive source of energy compared to the renewable energy sources. So we can see here that there are issues that markets will force companies to take into account, and then there are other instruments that the governments can use. But the governments themselves only cannot direct money markets, but it can help by strategy, aids, taxation, regulation, and other mechanisms that governments have to make this transition as positive as possible for citizens and for companies. So that example taken into account, and considering the timeline ahead, I could see that there are positive scenario possible ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Veselius. Now back to you, Mr. Zaev, and the question of the European Union and its role. Considering that in the whole region, in the North Macedonia as well, the public trust in the EU is not getting higher. On the opposite, it's getting lower, and it might be due to the dynamics of integration, it might be to the expectations that the EU has for the region. However, the green agenda that we are speaking of is something that will provide primarily, let's name it, local benefit, will provide progress of the countries which it's happening in, but something that is as well the interest and obvious interest of the European Union to happen. Because as Adnan said, if one place does do it, but the other doesn't, it's basically not good enough for everyone. So what are the necessary steps that need to be taken towards the public to raise their trust in this idea and to motivate, because without the citizens, without the society, politicians and political structures cannot do this themselves. Is there resistance to ideas that are perceived as primarily EU ideas in North Macedonia?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I think that that is not an issue where Europe push us or, I don't know, try to put us in the same line, in the same pipe for the future. No. It's, of course, our obligation. It's something what we feel it, because it's normally have a global aspect. We need to protect all together our planet, but directly impact to our children, our citizens, our people. In this direction, I think that we can learn a lot from European Union countries, mainly from the Nordic countries, for example, but also Germany, France, and other countries who develop good technologies, who have good experience and can be implemented here. But I think also the Western Balkans will be better than some of the European countries in this direction. I mention that because really we have our potential. Sun rising here is very good. Even now we became north, but still it's south. It's very, it's very sunny, but that count a lot of sunny days. A lot of sunny days here in the Western Balkans mean a better productivity of photovoltaics. The investment is the same here or in Sweden or in Germany, but the productivity is better here because of better sunny days in ours. Having that in mind, really we can do a lot. Of course, the challenges are with what to balance all these renewables. Because you have sun during the day, doesn't have sun during the night. You have wind part of the day you don't have it. So you need to balance. Probably after 10, 15 years, the hydrogen will be competitive and useful. That is clear renewable. But until that, we need to do it with that what we have it. Small potentials of hydrocentrals, especially those who are environmental friendly, we will use it for sure. Those who are not, of course, it's not useful. Even there is a big quantum or capacity of water. If it's bad for the environment, it's not useful. But of course, the world talk about natural gas. For Europeans, all of us, natural gas is not so renewable. For United States, it's renewable, but it's still hydrogen. But it's still fossil inside. And we are aware that we need to bypass all this period of time for balancing of energy. As I mentioned it, in the moment are building or under agreement more than 1,600 megawatt of photovoltaics only in small country North Macedonia, and more than 600 megawatt of windmills. Comparing with the capacity what we have it now, that is 700 megawatt, we have coal thermal plant, and we need to close it till 2030. We take obligation, not because somebody asked us or somebody push us or we have agreement, because of our responsibility. So in this direction, all these 1,600 megawatt photovoltaics and 600 megawatt windmills, what we have agreement until now, we need to balance with something. To push energy where there is no enough sun or there is no wind. And even sometimes you don't have wind 7 days. And the households and the economy need to use it. So we will do that with biomass, biogas, of course, with hydro centrals, but also with natural gas, because we need it to have, following the situation of more and more energy for everybody. But what is the real discussion for me in this socio-economic forum today? It's a reality that we, social democrats, here in the region must be leaders of that. I think all around the world, all around the European Union, but especially here in the region. Why? Because, as our friend Flankenstein mentioned it, it's not only to have green agenda. If you don't take care about workers, if you don't take care about jobs, and of course, children of our generations, in this direction, we started, and I think that we are a good example. I want to share that with you. The old mine in one of the coal thermal plant in North Macedonia, near to Kičevo, Oslomej, we closed it. And in this field, we announced public-private partnership for investment of photovoltaics, because it's big field, we can use it, we have grid, we have station, trafo station to receive the energy. But the condition was, those who want to invest in that need to take one employer per megawatt. For 100 megawatt, they take 100 workers because we need to close it, the old coal plant. And after that, the second condition was how much they will give to the state because of the land, grid connection, etc. We get it 18.5%. It's a complete private investment. One company from Bulgaria take it 50 megawatt, one company from Turkey taking 50 megawatt. Now they are in the process of getting permits. That is the message that we need to take care of the workers because they know to work in energy departments. First, it's good to use them for renewables, to protect the family, to protect the jobs normally, and we will continue in this direction. And that must be done by Social Democrats. That is not only agenda for the Green parties. Yes, it's mainly our agenda, Social Democrats, because we take care. We take care how to dance with the new aspects of requirements of the 21st century, normally, responsibility, but the global and whole responsibility. And I think the Balkan will be a good example for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zaev. You're absolutely right. You, Social Democrats, do have the responsibility and the role to be the leaders in this process. First of all, no one else is doing it. And second of all, you are the ones who need to ensure the just transition we are constantly mentioning. Now a question for you, Mr. Kurti. How to lead in the context of the political leadership that you need to take, how to lead the process regarding the air pollution, which is one of the biggest one of the most significant problems in the Western Balkans, especially in Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. The European Union is already funding projects to combat this problem, but then a lot needs to be done on the inside as well, because political will is not enough to reduce air pollution. A lot of money is needed and a lot of cooperation with the society and with the citizens are needed. How to achieve the solution of this problem?
Definitely, we need to tackle massively the issue of air pollution. And to this end, I believe that decarbonization is necessary but not sufficient. We need depollution, because depollution implies decarbonization but is not limited to that. We have open landfills, we have methane, we have so many other ways how our environment is being ruined and how air is being polluted. In particular, during winter in Kosovo, when cold weather and fog turns into smog because of the air pollution, and also the number of deaths increases and of people who get chronic lung diseases. And this is a big cost for our healthcare system, which is not in the best shape anyway. 53% of air pollution in Kosovo, unfortunately, comes from households burning coal. 53%. So there is more air pollution in Kosovo due to households burning coal than due to two thermal power plants that we have, namely Kosovo A and Kosovo B. One is old 60 years, the other is old 40 years. We need approximately production capacity of 1 gigawatt, 1,000 megawatts. And we want to phase out coal as soon as possible. But we know that it cannot happen within a few years. We have to do everything. We need help for that. We need to restructure our economy. We want to adhere to green agenda, hopefully with green jobs within the green agenda. But at the same time, we need energy efficiency. Energy efficiency, I believe, is something that should be our top priority. As long as we have households burning coal, we have to go to the homes of the people and help them. On the other hand, we have to take care of many aspects when we do feasibility study, either for energy policy in general or for partial sectors. Namely, we have to check consumer affordability, then financial sustainability of the sector. We need as much as possible diversification of both, of energy sources and suppliers. Then we need compliance with acquis communautaire, and a sort of what has been already mentioned by Mr. Fleckenstein, or sort of national consensus on energy policy. Because when it comes to energy policy, you cannot make small mistakes. You can make only big mistakes. For example, for over 2 decades in the Republic of Kosovo since liberation, no government made big decisions. For 2-3 decades to decide, you need at least national consensus. I want to mention one last thing, that we need also to have a balance between democracy and science. On one hand, we need scientific facts to take into consideration when we make political decisions, but also we have to work with the people, because there is democratic will, democratic representation. There is subjectivity, agency of citizens of the Republic. So there should not be democracy without science, but neither science without democracy. And we look forward to do the optimal combination of the two.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kurti. What you said, that one of the main reasons, the biggest contribution to the pollution during the winter are household heating systems, which are inadequate. Nobody uses them because they like to. People use them because they have to, and that's why the social aspect of the story is as important as any other. Thank you for this answer. We will go with another round of questions. Please limit your answers up to 3 minutes, because we have a lot more to do in the next 45 minutes. Mrs. Euselius, you are still here with us through Zoom. I would like to ask you, now, we hear that there is a lot of work in front of the countries of the Western Balkans. What can the European Union do to help and support these processes towards the ecological transformation?
Thank you. I will take a slightly bureaucratic view on this, which hopefully you would find of some use. Again, as an example from Finland, our national climate and energy policies are agreed on a national level, and they are very much in line with the European goals. So we welcome the European Green Deal and then generally what is being presented in the Fit for 55 package. But when we have a national agreement on the government level on a strategic goal, which is in line with the European goal, we can set targets as to how to achieve them. So therefore we have a linear process on different sectors and how to reach them. And as was mentioned before, which I find very important, is the knowledge-based political decision making. Because when we have knowledge that is supporting us, it will help us in making decisions longer term, and it will need to have some kind of a free way, because when you need to adjust, as in this field is most likely, then when you have new scientific information, you would then take it and use it. And it also makes it easier to discuss the changes with the citizens. And especially important then is to have the facts to support you and to have the kind of larger, broader shoulders to support you on a strategic level as well. So these kind of steps might sound bureaucratic, but they are extremely helpful. And when it comes to the European Union and its tools it has in these negotiations, I have to say I don't represent the European Union, so I'm probably not the best person to give any further advice that I think already is available for the highly distinguished people present in this forum and in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hearing the experiences and the good practices are always good advices for these paths. Mr. Fleckenstein, a question for you and the second chance that I promised. Here they come. So, still speaking of the EU, how much do the countries of the Western Balkans use the financial opportunities provided by the EU? And when speaking of the ecological transformation, what obligations are a part of this relationship of being able to use funds to support this process?
Well, I don't know the very concrete figures, but I know...
In numbers, I'm kidding.
The numbers.
Yeah.
But I know that not all the money is blown to the countries which could have been until now. That's sometimes a problem of the own sources who has to come in addition. It's sometimes also maybe a lack of having the right approach, the right experts on working on these projects. But let me tell you, I have nearly to read it to tell you something about the jungle of funds and funding, which is really a lot, meanwhile. It's not everything, but it can help if there is a clear plan or clear vision. We have the Green Deal as part of the economic and investment plan. You know, with all these flagships for renewable energy, flagship 5, transition from coal, renovation, waste and water managers. So this is all our projects we are thinking of or already planning can go in competition to get from this money. We have IPA 3, the proposal foresees a dedicated window of the programming framework for implementation of green agenda and sustainable connectivity. We have this multi-annual rural development program or programs under the instrument of pre-accession. We speak about sustainable culture, food production as a centerpiece of these EPAD funds. We have the Western Balkan Investment Framework by combining IPA and IFI loans, which can be used for growth fund, structured as public-private partnership, which will also play a very important role to have business in the development, because all what we are planning is not only to higher costs, but also give new chances, new potential for investments, private investments as well, for intelligent companies. And let me put as a last thing, there is this Western Balkan Guarantee Facility, which can be used to increase, not to attract more private funding, especially in that region. So I think there are three things which are the most important in that case. The first is, I have 30 seconds more, no?
Okay,
You
okay,
remember?
take it, go.
The first is to
I put too much pressure on you, did I? Okay, thank you.
No, but we have, first of all, we need really experienced staff, and we need also cooperation between the member states and the states here in the region to find really the ways how to do the projects, not because here all the people are sillies and we are so clever, but we have a bit more experience in that and we can exchange that and cooperate on that. Second thing is, we are speaking about projects, and there are a lot cross-border projects which might be sensible. Why not to have one project with two countries and one project team going ahead and working on that? Could also be, I think, a good thing. And last but not least, in all this transition, you need a very clear and very powerful body which is dealing with anti-corruption.
Yeah.
Because it's much money in the field. And secondly, all these transition costs will lead to higher costs to business, and this to avoid. Sometimes business has quite good ideas, but not good for our people.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these answers. Such an important aspect you've mentioned in the end. Mr. Debrani, so we've heard that changes will happen in the industry sector as a part of this process. We've heard that some jobs will be necessarily endangered and that solutions must be found for these professions, these people, their families, their existential surrounding. But where does the opportunity for creating new jobs arise in this process?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, you can.
The technology is not with me sometimes. Now, let me bring it down a little bit. I agree with all of the three other or four panelists on most of the things they say. Of course, for me, when it comes to workers' education, workers' wages, workers' conditions, and so on, it's something that I have in my backbone. It's always, as a social democrat, it's not an issue for me. This is a thing that we always need to think about. And when we want to create new jobs, we need to create new jobs, of course, with these three things in mind. But also, when we create new jobs, we need to think that even it doesn't need to be a new thing. When we build a new road, how can we do that in terms of energy efficiency or in terms of with things that don't have low emission cement or whatever it is. While I'm talking about roads, I'm a man of a simpleness. We always talk about these bigger things, what can we do, what can we not do, and so on. I mean, if we look at the Western Balkans, we have a lot of things that we can do in the very easiest things. For example, the weather is nice, but you see no people bicycling around because there are no ways to take the cycle.
Yeah.
This is a simple thing. If you want to make sure that people don't take the car, pave the way, tell them you can have the bicycle, here's a road for that, and so on. It's a simple thing, but we don't do it. So this is the smaller things that we often forget because we think in the bigger picture. Another thing that I'm thinking about is the cooperation. We talk about cooperation between countries and so on, but Prime Minister Kurti, and I also think the other ones talked about that. In terms of long-term relationship, companies, investments, and so on, we need to cooperate also with the other political parties in our countries. Otherwise, this will not work. I know it's hard, especially in the Balkans and so on, but this is not a thing that we can just neglect. We need to do it because all of these issues will not be solved today. They will probably be here for decades. So even though we sometimes have struggles with the others, this is a thing that we need cooperation with. And it's for me the most important one. Because if Prime Minister Zaev goes to Pristina, signs something, and then 2 weeks later someone else comes and that falls down. Hopefully that will never happen. You will be the ruler for this country for hundreds of years, I almost said. So don't worry about that. But it's really, really important. that we do it in that way. I can stop there if you want.
Yes, you
Did
can,
I answer
please.
your question? Because I see
But
the 3
yes,
minutes.
I see you
I
have
don't
not
dare.
answered my question, but like you have, okay, go with 15 more seconds. Where is the opportunity for new jobs in this process? Where is the opportunity to create new jobs through the process of ecological transformation?
I think the opportunity lies in what we see in front of us, in all of the simpleness, all of the things we want to do. Don't think what is the new jobs. We already have the jobs. We just need to do it in different ways. When it comes, both in when it comes to the workers, but also when it comes to the things we are using, manufacturing and so on. We need to think what can we use so that we have lower emissions. And when we do that, we will create new jobs also because there is a new technology involved.
Thank you for answering my question, and thank you for everything else you've said. Mr. Kurti, okay, now a question which is really important. Next to everything we are speaking about, addressing the climate changes in the Western Balkans is often, not often, always, not perceived as a top priority question. We have often insecurities, instabilities, currently both in Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Again, we share so much of the political dynamics. And the question of climate change is often perceived as, you know, for those who have like for the privileged ones. If you have a great job, if you have a lot of money, then you can go and like discuss the climate change a bit. People are not being able to identify with the topic because you are under a constant threat of political insecurity, instability. How do we manage to set the question of climate change on the daily agenda of the society? How do we include the society in this process? I saw the hand again.
I believe that in recent years there has been a certain shift in Europe when it comes to political orientation of middle class. There has been a shift of considerable number of voters from social democratic parties towards green parties. And this happened particularly among the ranks of the middle class. But I believe that things are changing back now, where we see that social issues and green agenda cannot be separated from each other. That's why you cannot be environmentally friendly without being socially friendly. On the other hand, you cannot do only class analysis without taking into consideration environmental impact. So that's why this forum, this event is right spot on when it comes to social issues and green agenda. But I think that in recent years we have seen a certain pendulum regarding the voters of the middle class, not only in Germany, it happened all over Europe, also in our countries. There is a rising awareness and concern about environmental issues, but I believe that at the same time, to this awareness, there is this other consciousness of linking the two. That's why on my speech I emphasized the fact that we need a strong social floor of our home and a solid environmental roof. If we lose the roof, we are not going to have anymore our home, because there is no home without roof. And if we lose the social floor, we will fall in the basement. We will not be able to live in our home. So we need both. And when you need both, the situation is not simple. You don't have simple answers. It is complex, it is hard, but at the same time, it is challenging and we should go for it.
As you said at the beginning, some things need to be done because they're hard, not because they're easy. Knut, you had a comment? Just briefly, please.
Yes, yeah. I think it's so important for us that we really be honest to the people. First of all, we need education. education, education, that people understand what we are talking about. My daughter yesterday went to one of these Friday for Future demonstrations. 20,000 people in Hamburg. When she came back, she sent me a message, it was great. And what about our next holidays? And she would so much love to go once on a cruise ship. You know these cruise ships, these big ones, when they come to the port of Hamburg, where I'm coming from, they have the same pollution than 30,000 cars at the same time, as long as they are in the port. So we have also to be honest to the people and say, some of our nice hobbies we should think about. Do we really have to fly short term? Is it really right that the flight is only costing 30 euros? We know it must be more. Is it right? And so on and so on. And if we do so, always we have to answer the question, okay, what you are telling is nice, sounds good, but that means the poorer people should stay at home and the richer one take the flight to holidays when it gets more expensive. And this is also something we have to debate with us, because we don't want to exclude from all the goodies in the world those who have not so much money, but on the other hand, we know we really live on the costs of our grandchild. So how to manage this? It's not really answered by Social Democrats until now, and up to the end, and we have to continue this debate, how to deal with it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Shortly and briefly, please, Mr. Zaev, because before we switch to the country representative perspectives, how important is the regional cooperation in this process? You are often being identified as one of the regional leaders, which sometimes is more of a burden than an honor. But in this context, when we think of the region of the Western Balkans, it's a region with so many nature potentials. When you allow yourself to think even further, we could be the leaders in this process. But how important is and do you think this is a topic that could bring together all the leaders inside the region? But short.
For me, it's very important. Why? Because we're small countries, even region is very small. Yeah. In this global competition, if we are smart to be together, I think that will bring a benefit to our citizens. For example, if we negotiate with one of the regional biggest producer of liquid natural gas, Qatar, for example, it's ownership of United States and Qatarian businessmen. If we buy quantities for all countries, for example, there will be lower prices than if we go alone. I only give example. We are really connected. Our grids, transmission grids for energy, is connected. North Macedonia is connected with Kosovo, with Serbia, with Bulgaria, with Greece and Albania. Now we build it with Albania. But that shows how even Europe is small. Very often we talk that we are island inside of European Union. And really one of the beautiful islands what European Union have.
The most beautiful, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this direction, now it's having fear if Afghanistan refugees will come, we need to be partners with Europe. We are together. If it's grid connection for energy, how the energy, I don't know, from Italy will go to Bulgaria and Romania without us. Or I don't know, from Slovenia and Croatia to go in Greece. We are part of that. All that show that we are connected. But we are still one of the regions in the European continent. If we are together, we can be more attractive, more competitive for the other regions, for the Western Europe, Northern Europe, Eastern Europe, etc. And that is good always to develop a common strategy of the region. in every issue. In this direction, you know, there is a debate now why Albin Kurti, Edi Rama, and Zoran Zaev offered to Americans help for Afghanistan. Probably because we are social democrats. Probably, I
Might
don't know.
be, yes.
Our feeling to help humanity, solidarity, that is part of our work and our minds and our characters. But in this direction, I believe very much that the regional cooperation is an invitation for all of us. Albin, no, we talk a lot for energy connection, we talk a lot of economic connection, but also social aspects of all of that. Because for Edi Rama, for example, it's easier. They have it a lot of hydrocentral. We in Kosovo have a lot of coal. Serbia have a lot of coal also. Bosnia and Herzegovina have good rivers and potential. Montenegro also, they have it half, for example. So that put us, Kosovo and North Macedonia, really to be very much dedicated in this energy transition period. And I believe very much that will be a successful process for all of us.
Thank you. Please keep your seats. Now we will be hearing the comments on country perspectives of the representatives of the countries of the Western Balkans. I would first like to invite Romina Kuko, a Secretary of Foreign Affairs from the Socialist Party of Albania, to join us here on stage. Okay, thank you. Ms. Kuko, please take the stand and try to keep your statement in the limited time, and tell us, when we are speaking of the clean and green future for everyone, is there a general benefits that citizens have from the EU Green Deal? Because the ecological change we are speaking of, as we've said multiple times, means a social change as well.
Thank you very much. Honored Prime Ministers, Mr. Zaev, thank you for the invitation. Mr. Fleckenstein, thank you very much for your inputs. Dear ladies and gentlemen, representatives, I greet you on behalf of the Socialist Party of Albania, and I think that this is indeed a very needed forum so that we start a discussion regarding a very specific topic which impacts our citizens, but also the policies that our countries are going to have in the future. While you were thinking about the Agenda 2050, one of the ideas I had in my mind and made a calculation was that the 1990 is further in history than the 2050. So the 2050 is closer to us, and it looks like a very futuristic date, but actually it's not that far. So we definitely have to start to think in terms of future and future generations. Albania has made a lot of progress in terms of the green energy. We have the laws settled, we have the strategies, we have, of course, the local government, which has a decentralized function regarding the environmental aspect, the waste management, and the way the policies are enhanced. We have the councils for environment in every city council of Albania, which creates a link between the central policies and also the implementation and the democracy that we discussed with the citizens, the education. However, it's really important that we align our policies in the region because we are, I would say, blessed to share the same nature in the Balkans, to share the same resources such as rivers, and also the climate, which means that an impact or a small mistake or a big mistake in environment can have an impact on the other country. So yesterday actually we were having a discussion on starting a conversation also in terms of political ideology, which is definitely then translated into vision and a political alignment. We have a process of the acquis communautaire of aligning our legislation and policies regarding all the chapters, and Albania is working really hard into aligning these chapters. Hopefully we will need an impulse also from the European Union in order to start the negotiation process and the discussions. It looks like a topic that is discussed for many, many years, and a discussion that we're having over and over again. Some people say it is wishful thinking, but in our opinion, it's not a wishful thinking. It's an impulse that our countries will need so that we, of course, align our policies in the region, but we definitely align our policies with the European Union. And finally, the region is interconnected with the final destination, which is the Green Deal, the Green Agenda, and all the progressive policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we will be having Mr. Ivan Vukovic, who is the Vice President of the Democratic Party of Socialists of Montenegro, joining us here on stage. Mr. Vukovic, we will be hearing the perspective of Montenegro. I'm also interested in what models do you think that the Social Democrats should prefer in this process of energy transformation, and what kind of models would guarantee security for the social aspect of the story? Please go ahead.
First of all, let me thank you for the invitation to participate in this very important conference. I'm here on behalf of the Democratic Party of Socialists, which is the biggest party in Montenegro, and in addition to that, I've been a mayor of Podgorica, which is the capital city of Montenegro, for the last 3 years. So I'll try to provide some sort of an input, from both sides. I'd like to thank the organizers. I must say that things that we've heard thus far are very inspiring, and they show that no matter how the world perceives this part of Europe, we do think seriously about the future challenges, and we do take into consideration both ecological and social aspect of the topic that brought us together. Recently, a few days ago actually, we marked the 30th anniversary of the proclamation of Montenegro as an ecological state. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this fact, but 30 years ago we decided to self-proclaim Montenegro as the first ecological state in the world. I'm not sure how far we've come in this way. I would say that we have fallen short of this ambitious goal. But having said that, I would also like to say that we have accomplished a lot. Not only us in Montenegro, but I think throughout the Western Balkans you see the concrete results of the progress that we made in this field. I could go on and on, listing the projects such as the first wind farms that we have in Montenegro, the big solar plant that is currently being prepared for construction at the southern part of Montenegro, numerous mini hydro plants, some of which did, some of which did not, unfortunately, meet the ecological standards, and the gradual transformation from using fossil fuels, first and foremost coal, because we do have this large coal plant in the northern part of Montenegro, and most of the energy that we produce in Montenegro still comes from this particular source. Another thing to have in mind, something that happened 2 years ago, which I consider extremely important, not only for Montenegro, but for the rest of the Western Balkans as a whole, is the project of the submarine cable, like interconnection between Italy and Montenegro. So we've managed to build this 423-kilometer long cable connecting Montenegro with Italy. The value of this project was 1.1 billion euros, and it pretty much allows for all the energy that we produce in Montenegro, the Western Balkans, to be exported to Italy and further to the Western markets. So that has certainly given a strong impetus to those who would like to get try on in the market, in energy market, and to implement new technologies. So I think when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to concrete accomplishments, we've done a lot. But why did I say that we have fallen short of the expectations? I think because of the level of kind of consciousness and awareness of the importance of these topics, as some of the panelists mentioned today, and including Knut in his last remark. I think we need to work much more in order to explain to the people, especially the young generation, how important this is, and at the same time, as social democrats and people who have political responsibility, sure that does not hurt common people, that we need to be creative and find a way to make use of these new technologies so that people could actually do better as a result. I have in mind that, the administration of the former American president Obama did with using renewables. It had been taboo for a very long time, but they showed that it could actually be profitable, and it resulted in the increase of the percentage of energy that is produced from renewable sources. So if we bring the two together, which I'm absolutely sure we can, and if we win popular support, then the Western Balkan region could actually, as Prime Minister Zaev, be a shining example in this regard.
Thank you very much for your statement. I would like to invite Mr. Ivan Vujovic to join us on stage as well, who is the Secretary General of Social Democratic Party of Montenegro. We have heard a part of the perspective when it comes to the Montenegro's path towards ecological transformation. Well, in addition to whatever you might want to add to what we've heard, my question for you is, how much does the turbulent political everyday narrative leave room? How much room does it leave for these topics to be put into public space?
That is a very good question, and unfortunately, mostly due to some, in my opinion, negative political processes that are taking place since last August and Montenegro, I think that these agendas and these topics and issues that is very, very much and more visible at the European and world and global level is not so present in Montenegro. I will not say that of what the political actors were doing in Montenegro, but I think that I can say that things are deteriorating in the last year, as you said, because some, let's say, basic ordinary challenges that we have been facing in the recent past and that we thought we have completed is now again on the political and social agenda in Montenegro. That is some kind of the factor, of the element that is stopping us from dealing with these issues in a way that it really deserves to. But I think we can all see that this agenda at the level of European Union, at the level of United Nations, is becoming more and more present and visible at European, at the world stage. Also, I think it's more than justified, because we are facing concrete problems with regard to many environmental issues, with air pollution. I think that situation in the Western Balkans, there are some figures that I also read about it, is a very worrying one. Is very worrying one. I read one figure, for example, that 18 thermoenergetic plants in the Western Balkan is producing 2.5 times more air pollution, more sulfur dioxide than for something about more than 200 thermoenergetic plants in European Union. And this is really big alarm for all of us. And I would be very, I agree totally with what Knut said, today that regardless of our political and social divisions in our country, we have to do everything to build a kind of national consensus about these issues. A few days ago in Montenegro, that is maybe one small step forward, we built, or has been built in Montenegrin parliament, a kind of green caucus consisting of members of parliament and members of different political parties. As my colleague, Mr. Vukovic, said, we in Montenegro have this kind of specificum that we proclaimed the ecological state 30 years ago, and these days there was an anniversary of this proclamation of ecological state. So it is a kind of possibility for all of us to push forward this agenda, and I think that it's very, very much important that we as a progressive, as social democratic family, and FES as our political foundation, puts this issue more and more high at our political and parties agenda. And I think that as social democrats have been always the most progressive European political forces and all parties belonging to our family, I think that this issue, what we are discussing today, is one element that have to be part of our progressive agenda, because it is something that impacts all of us equally, not just on the level of each state, not just at the level of EU, but there are no borders, when it comes to issue of air pollution, when it comes to issues of environmental protection. We don't have divisions, we cannot put borders between our states and between air of all our states. So that's why I think we have to focus more on that, and I really rely on both PES, PIC, regional family parties, and FES that this today, what is going on, to be just one for the beginning of many other events and many other activities that will be focusing on these issues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vukovic. A great idea. I would like to invite Ms. Dragana Rakic, who is Vice President of Democratic Party of Serbia, to also make a statement on the perspective on Serbia, and also address the issue of the importance of how democratic a country is as something that is an important precondition for fulfilling all the goals. Please stick to the time. Thank you.
Dobar dan, drage socijaldemokratkinje i
Good day, Social Democrats. Thank you for allowing me to address you today. Serbia, as the whole region, is confronting with many challenges, and one of the firing problems is the air pollution, the environment pollutions, and all the negative consequences brought by it. In Serbia, the condition is complicated enough, because with the country is ruled by an organized criminal who enables to solve any social problem successfully and in the benefit of the citizens. Never in the history of Serbia has it happened what has now in the previous 9 years happened to people from the top of the government have so openly linked and they collaborate with criminals. From the report of the European Commission, of Freedom House, Reporters Without Borders, and other relevant international organizations, you can see that in Serbia there is no rule of law, that human rights and minority rights are being violated, institutions do not work, there are no free media, there is no conditions to have fair and democratic elections, and there is no effort for Serbia to improve on the path of the European Union, so there is also no improvement, no progress from protecting the environment. Throughout the Western Balkans and Serbia, the level of air pollution, soil, surface water is very high. The impact of the alarming level of pollution of the soil and health of the citizens is important. The pollution should be seen from the perspective of its health impact, but also it's important to see the possible impact on the social, economic perspective of the citizens. This is going for the regions that are characteristic for exploitation of coal. In Serbia, there are such regions where almost more people work in the energetic sector in the coal industry. In the Republic of Serbia, 70% of the energy has been gotten from coal. Thermal power plants that burn coal are the biggest pollutants, especially of air. The current government plans to build new thermal power plant with the excuse that the existing facilities are old and that we must have new contemporary ones with lower emissions of gas. This is not a good way to decrease the emissions and to go with the process of energetic transition so we could follow the rest of Europe. Serbia and the Western Balkans are, according to researches, as experts have seen it, a territory which in the future years will be hit by climate changes. Now we can witness that. So you have situation that periods of very warm intervals are being changed with droughts, and also periods with huge rains that cause extreme floods, as the situation was in 2014. The Western Balkan countries and Republic of Serbia are at the same time countries that take coal as their biggest resource. In appliance with the obligations and the green agenda for Western Balkans and in relation for decreasing the gas emissions and greenhouse emissions, the governments have to start building an integrated energetic and climate plan which will contain national goals in the sense decarbonization of renewables, energy efficiency and energy security. This job has to be public. The public has to be included in the earliest phase of making the plan in order to have a social consensus of this very important question. We have to include professionals from the sphere, civil society, economy, businesses, local self-governments, unions. So the plan will be in accordance of the needs of the society and sustainable development. Serbia, with signing the Green Agenda for Western Balkan, has confirmed its commitment towards the goals of a neutral Europe until 2050. It has confirmed its commitment to future work on decarbonization of the energetic sector with the European Union and the partners of the Western Balkans. Serbia has committed to apply its goals with the European Union by signing some international agreements, Agreement on Stabilization and Joining, the Paris Agreement, the Agreement of Creating the Energetic Community, the Green Agenda for Western Balkan, and the August Convention. We think that the government of Serbia has to urgently have a plan for going on renewables instead of thermal power plants on coal. With the plan, the transition will be just. We will have alternative, adequate solutions for new jobs for the employed in the coal industry and so on. As we talked already, these are only some of the challenges which are ahead of Serbia. Unfortunately, we haven't done much. As I said, the problem is a high level of corruption, trapped institutions, and this is the reason why we still cannot follow up world trends in the energetic transitions towards renewables. The problems from the health security will be successfully solved only when the autocratic criminal regime is changed. And that's why it's important that the citizens of Serbia fight as soon as possible for fair and democratic elections, which are ahead of us in April 2022. On that path, we will need the support of the social democratic parties from the region and whole of Europe. I call you to be support of the citizens of Serbia in their fight for a normal and dignified, healthy life. I wish you good health before all and never give up from changing the world towards better. Thank you.
Mr. Irfan Cengic now, who is the member of the Federal Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina, coming from the Social Democratic Party. Irfan will give us the perspective of Bosnia and Herzegovina while also addressing the question of the importance of the involvement of European Union in this process, and should the European Union be more present is an answer I'm expecting. Thank you, Irfan.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to come North Macedonia and see progress of Prime Minister Zaev and his government, and I'm a little bit jealous of your progress. Social Democrats have the biggest responsibility, like Knut already said. In one hand you have business and right policy conservatives, it's all about money, and on the other hand you have green parties, it's all about ecology. And only Social Democrats have also ecology and works and jobs. That is important because I come from Bosnia, and we have 70% of our electricity and energy is from coal plants. And we produce that energy for 40 euros, we give that energy to our people for 30 euros, and price of energy, electric energy is around 100 euros. So with the process of decarbonization, we will lose some of our job, we will lose of our energy independence, and also probably we will have a much higher price of electricity for our people. But we have no choice. We must go with decarbonization. We promised that. We have signed all agreements, and that is our future. But we need help from the EU. We need help with projects of renewable energy, especially with solar and wind energy. We need cooperation with trade unions, and we need plans for our workers, especially in infrastructure, and maybe that is answer where we can new jobs create. Infrastructure, because miners who work in the coal, thermal plant and everything can work also in our building highway and similar projects. And we need subventions for our price for poor people in our country for electricity energy, because they cannot pay a much higher price of electricity. And in the end, we need education. Like Knut already said, we are politicians, we need votes. And when I talk in Bosnia about Green Deal, energy, thermal plants, coal, people don't understand me. And they don't want to listen to me. And we need EU to help us to educate people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Germany is leading country of EU. And our, I hope so, future Chancellor Olaf Scholz, addressing the one meeting about climate neutral economy, said that we must that goal attacked together with workers and business. And we need modernization of industry together with trade unions, because jobs stand workers and are priorities in our fair transition. And that is what exactly I expect from EU in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I expect that we have fair transition, because we need that because of our family and friends and parents who work today, and because of our children and our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Irfan. Thank you. Okay, just in time. So we stole 10 minutes out of the coffee break, and I claim full responsibility for this. So I will ask you now to, we will take 2 questions and try to answer. I will actually now give the full responsibility for the answers to Mr. Zaev and Mr. Kurti to answer these questions in your closing statements. So can we have hands of those who would like to ask a question regarding the topic we have just discussed? Or have we covered? Oh, there's a hand in the middle. Yes, we see you. The microphone is approaching, and please make it a short question, if possible. It must be possible, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Ljubsko Dimov. I'm an expert of energy efficiency. 2 short questions to Mr. Zaev. The ambitious projects that you said from the aspect of energetic transition, are they not a challenge enough or a pre-needed condition on an organizational plan finally to make a ministry for climate and energy something with which we should compare ourselves with the region and also with Europe, and I think is a needed condition to realize as it should be all these plans? And the second question, on a local level, there is a big burden that has to go in parallel, and that's the potential of conducting energy efficiency projects, which is a big potential for the green economy on a local level, but also for our young personnel staff, which more often we see this model in the European Union. What are your opinions regarding this?
To Prime Minister Zaev, do we have another question? We are there is a hand like in the, can we have the microphone, excuse me, can we have the microphone in the left area of the, oh, we have it, great.
Yes, can you hear me? Excellent.
Yes.
A question for both Mr. Zaev and Mr. Kurti. You've said a lot of great things about the green agenda for the Western Balkans. I'm Ivan, my name is Ivan, I come from Croatia. And I have a question as a young person, because you've all mentioned young people that you are doing this for the future generations, and I'm grateful for that, but this whole green transition also has its social dimension. I mean, we also have to be prepared for these new green jobs, and can you please share us your plan, maybe how can you promote these new green jobs to people who are younger than I am, I mean much younger than I am, who are now still in high school, who are still in universities. How will you inspire people to take green jobs, not just only in the industry, but also in the creative economy, such as our wonderful interpreters up there who are using their knowledge to bring us non-material good in forms of their translation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question as well. I will just remind the people who are watching us through Zoom that if you have wrote any questions or gave any comments, we will make sure that you get the answers during the day or during the following panels. So let's go with the closing statements, which will please contain the answers to the questions we've just heard, but also a general comment to everything that we've heard today. Mr. Kurti, would you like to begin?
We need closely to work with European Union, bearing in mind that we should have both EU funds and EU values at the same time. I believe that there should be no funds without values, but at the same time, not only EU values without EU funds, because we need to catch up, we need to move forward faster. And as Mr. Fleckenstein put it, I believe that education is crucial. We need that in our education system, within our curriculums, to bring in the awareness for climate change, for concerns for the environment of all sorts, because it has to do with our generation and the next one as well. Therefore, I believe that education system cannot remain the same when it comes to climate change. And in close cooperation with EU, we believe that we can together achieve this goal. In particular, we count a lot on those who already entered EU, but in recent times, including Croatia, to help Western Balkans 6 to accelerate in its European path, including the social and environmental issues. Again, I believe that there is a rising awareness also in EU that these two issues are very much linked. Therefore, one cannot go without the other. What I oppose is a certain irony or cynicism that also in EU there are certain problems, therefore we shouldn't be minding. I think that we should stick to values and to principles, also check facts on the ground and our interests, but not fall in the cynical trap where you say that since this country has this much coal, we should abandon altogether phasing out coal. I believe it is very important to have as a clear goal, as a vision, environmentally friendly methods of both energy production and consumption, and not to get cynical because integration into EU is being delayed. I think it's an injustice that Western Balkans 6 is not moving faster towards EU. It has to do a lot with EU issues. But on the other hand, we should not fall into a kind of bitterness and cynical mood towards EU.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Kurti, amazing. Mr. Zaev.
I agree completely with Albin. Really, beside together also with help with the European Union, we can create a lot of quality jobs, especially for young people. But even now, the engineer for photovoltaic or windmills take a salary 1,500 euro to 2,000 euro. It's very attractive and will be more and more. And generally, energetic engineers are well paid. So in this direction, all other activities connected with renewable energies can be very creative, and especially using of all these potentials of balancing public enterprises, etc., will have possibility to create a lot of jobs, which can be subsidized or substituted with those who will lose it during the closing the coal factories. For Ljupcho, two questions. First of all, if we have in mind that we have 3 blocks in Bitola per 210 megawatts and 1 block in Oslomej 110 megawatts, altogether that is 750 megawatt, not more. We talk about 1,600 megawatts photovoltaics and 600 megawatt windmills, only what is signed now and is under construction or put in use. So that means that the energy production will be higher and higher here in North Macedonia. And of course, for me, it's a good reason to start thinking about the Ministry for Energy. But of course, it's an open debate, and I hope that in the future there will be more support for that. And for the second question about local self-governments, municipalities, yes, they are very important part of all this energy transition process, not because of a lot of permits for building for photovoltaics, windmills will be given by the mayors and local councils, but energy efficiency especially will be very important, because not only investment in renewables but also saving energy is very important. So we must do that as much as possible in schools, in kindergartens, I don't know, in the local enterprises and other institutions, hospitals who are under competence of the local self-government. And in this direction, of course, it's important the activities of the mayors and local councils. North Macedonia and Kosovo have elections in 17th of October. So that is not only need that Social Democrats must be oriented for renewables and social aspects of keeping jobs, taking care about jobs, but we need to continuing to win elections. Now, especially local elections, because that is also our obligation if we want to keep this socio-ecological agenda, what is one of the priority of every citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Zaev. Thank you for all your contributions. I will take just 30 more seconds to switch to a perspective of a young person living in the Western Balkans. I promise I'm young. We need to see that the region can move forward. We need to see that the region can work together. We need to see political leaders who are ready to take the initiative and show us that changes can be done. We need to see political leaders who will care not only about the investments but of people and the social categories, different social categories inside the population. So I'm sure that this is an encouragement for all of you present here today to be those people and to give hope to the younger generations. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for everything you've said. We will be having the coffee break in the white tent where the reception was held last night, perhaps 20 minutes because we stole the time for the session, and we will see you at the second panel soonly. Thank you.